Okay, next I want to bring in Brad Aarons. Brad I've known for maybe, I don't know, seven years or so. I met him when he was at Epic as an A&R guy. Yeah, I'm going to give a little background on what your history is.
Well, I have a multifaceted background. I started being a musician myself, which led me to understanding a bit more about the business side as I realized my interest in the creative process with record labels. Got my first job answering phones, working up the ranks as an A&R guy at Epic Records and Sony International. I lived in London doing A&R scouting for Sony Publishing some years back. I grew up and worked in New York for some time, and I've been in Los Angeles here 5 years. So I've been on the publishing side, I've been on the label side, I've been a manager, and I'm currently here on the publishing side. So.
Yeah, and Brad's one of the guys that's truly got his sort of ears to the ground. He's at every show, regardless. He knows every band, and is one of the guys that, you know, your typical person that you'd want to meet at South by Southwest, because he's a genuine tastemaker, and there's a lot of people out there like him. No one quite like you, Brad, but there's a lot of people out there like him.
Flattery to get you everywhere.
He's your prototypical guy that you want to impress at South by Southwest. So I guess why don't we just sort of dive into it, Brad? How would a band impress you?
Well, leading into South by, I think there's a lot of legwork which needs to be done in order for you to stand out amongst the thousands of bands that are playing, and then therefore the thousands others that are just down there to network and hang. So really, South by could be considered almost a half year, if not longer, process of starting to get your name out and get yourself or your band in an awareness community, whether that's online or whether that's through video sites, however. So how would a band impress me at South by Southwest? The nice thing is I usually have a pretty extensive list of things I'd like to see, of which maybe I get to 10% of, just the way South by is. It's very chaotic. However, there's nothing nicer than being turned on to a band whilst down there. So that comes really from marketing yourself traditionally and non-traditionally, and if you could do that leading into South by, that's fantastic. And if you can somehow create a little bit of a buzz for yourself whilst down there, even better. So there's really a lot of ways to go about doing this, and like I said, most of you probably are aware of the more traditional things, but I'll give you an example. There's a band I never really cared for their music, and I won't even mention their name, but they were able to, no matter what, every South by I've been to, have this obnoxious van with a trailer stickered, with all their band names and everything around it, and they just stood out. Like, you couldn't miss them, and that's really what you want to do. So although I wasn't impressed with their music, I was impressed with their tenacity and their proactive nature, and really their desire just to do whatever they can to be noticed. And it can be done in a gabillion different ways. Creatively, you have to kind of think what works for each individual artist or band. But if you don't have the means to kind of do the long lead press, if you wish, kind of getting into South by, find a way to market yourself while you're down there. So everyone's talking about, did you see that crazy thing on the corner? Did you see that van? That thing is everywhere, whatever that thing may be. So that's one way to go about doing it. And another way, Eric alluded to, which is probably the most important thing there, is networking. Find a way to get in the right rooms at the right time. Traditionally over the years, the Four Seasons Hotel lobby has always been the mecca of everyone coming together and doing their schmooze. Don't harass people, but just in normal conversation, everyone's there to chat, everyone's there to network, everyone wants to kind of learn about new music that's coming through. So just through normal means of normal means of conversation, just really just start meeting people, and as someone else comes over to join the conversation, which happens all the time, they'll probably make the introduction, be like, oh, this is so-and-so who I just met. And before you know it, in a matter of a half hour, you've probably, had a normal conversation with, 3, 4, maybe a half dozen people. So,
and don't really quick to jump in. Sorry, and Tom brought it up earlier a little bit. Is that, or maybe it was Peter, that other managers and bands from other countries want to go down to Australia, and if they hear your accent, don't discount that the Australian accent can be very effective on Americans and people around the other world. They're interested in meeting people from foreign countries, and a lot of them they want contacts in Australia. So know that you have some value as a person in the Australian music industry, or as a band, as somebody that can provide information about what bands are hot down there, or maybe what labels they should be shopping their bands to down in Australia.
I couldn't agree more with Tony. I mean, the same way that you would hope to meet other musicians and other artists who are touring here regionally or nationally, so you can kind of piggyback off of their fan base. That's exactly what you're offering back to them in Australia. And Australia, although large by land mass, by market, it's quite accessible, because there's relatively fewer markets to play, and it's something that bands here who have a little bit of momentum could get themselves down there and play 3 or 4 cities and then fly back. So it's a way to really to share a fan base and build your name over here, and they could do it vice versa. There's a list of couple of talking points here. I'm a type of person that, I can go on a diatribe about, Universal's policies and what they like to sign, how they go about doing business. But really, I could just open it up to a couple of questions that always leads to a bit more dialogue, if that's okay with you.
Sure. My question is, if somebody is to delegate at South by Southwest and not actually showcasing, would they be able to get onto your radar, or are you just interested in those bands showcasing?
It's a very good question. I'm certainly interested in artists that are able to proactively put themselves in the right place at the right time. And if they can't play a showcase, that's okay, because most likely I would not be able to go check out that showcase without knowing about the band beforehand, unless I just happened to wander into a room with someone who said, check this out, or they went on after a band that I was going to see. Because what a lot of people in my position tend to do is have a bit of homework done going in, so that you're not kind of just like drifting all over the place. You want to kind of be a bit more focused, because you'll have your schedule laid out and you won't get to, like I said, 90% of it. So I'm not dissuaded by someone who's not playing there. I wouldn't make that a point of conversation right off the bat. You might just want to, say that you're in a band and you're down South by Southwest, and not give yourself an opportunity to walk yourself out of a conversation if someone didn't have the same opinion as I do. But I'm not personally dissuaded by it. And I think Eric mentioned that the last thing you want to do in that scenario is force a CD down someone's throat, because they're not going to want to walk around with it, and they're not going to want to have to carry it back home to wherever they're going for the most part. So if you're not playing and you want someone to hear your music, whether it's going to be one of those cards now that you can log onto a site and download the stuff, or whether it's just a business card with a link, or better yet, if you're persuasive enough, I'll be happy to give you my business card and then you email me. But I'm not personally turned off by that at all. There's a couple of things. If you're not going to be playing, well, this really kind of ties on both sides, if you're going to play or not. If you're not going to be playing, you really then should be, hustling 24 hours a day to make sure you're talking with everyone that you can. And that's not just labels. That's not just publishers or creative people like myself. That's other bands. That is, the guy who has his own webcam show in Des Moines. Well, you know what? In Des Moines, they don't get a lot of music coming through. So if he's the influential tastemaker in Des Moines, then that's a good person to know. So you should really talk to everyone that you're you're able to in all the right spots. Now, and if you are playing, then everything should be led into that show. I mean, all conversations should lead into everyone coming to that show, and kind of make it a moment. You know, a lot of bands now tend to play multiple shows, and I think that's really important. But if you have one show, then your whole focus should be about, you know, getting people down to that show, and if they're not able to get to that show, make them go home with something that's going to, you know, remember you, you know, and that physically or just through conversation. So the other aspect, now I can't speak for Universal in Australia, but in the U.S. market, you know, Universal is not a company that tends to get in and help develop from a no fan base or no platform position. It's a very big company, as you probably know. It's the largest publishing company in the world, and the threshold of success is a little bit different than that of some other companies. So for Australian bands or artists coming into the U.S., unless there's already a significant story coming out of your territory, it would be difficult to kind of say, like, I just want to get signed with Universal Music Publishing right off the bat. But if you had done, you know, some legwork and some homework where you're touring with successful bands here in the U.S., you've made a little bit of a name for yourself, then it's easier for us to get involved. But you know, there's sometimes, and it's not just Australians, it's, you know, international artists who haven't cracked their own territory yet, and they're looking for a deal out of the U.S. And I think that's a very dangerous thing. I think you need to make sure that you have you know, as much success as you can in your home market before looking outside, because it's a real indicator to people that that people have a desire to listen to your music. So you know, if there's a story there, if there's a small story here, then Universal is a little bit more able to get involved. But if it's, you know, just a great song with no platform, Universal's a very big company, and one that would probably like to see the artist be a bit more either prolific or proactive in order to do something. Well, you know, if I could, there's one last talking point that I'll bring up, because I'd always like to clear up the biggest misconception in music publishing world. You never give up your publishing. You know, if you want a publishing partner as part of your team, you know, it's always good to keep in mind that you're never giving up your publishing. You know, when you arrange yourself into a co-publishing deal, you don't just give it away forever. A lot of times there's reversions, and you can get your copyrights back. There's favorable splits. There's ways to arrange deals that make sense for both parties. But the thing to remember is, even the portion that you're giving up, you will get so much more in terms of positive exploitation, to whether it's film and TV or video games or you know, all the contacts that your publishing company, you know, will have that you might not be able to open on your own. So if there's questions as to, like, I'm not really sure I want to do a publishing deal, you know, that's a legitimate thought to have. But the other side, it's just one more person on your team who's going to open up doors that you might not have been able to open up on your own. So you know, I think it's really behooves especially Australian artists to have a worldwide publishing company, because you'll be able to get you know, sync placements in, you know, U.S. TV shows that you might not have access to, because, you know, the music supervisor's not really looking, you know, in Australia. They're looking to you know, their U.S. publishers to say, well, hey, who's on your roster globally?
It's terrible when bands don't explore all their options, or when they've heard something and they say, oh, we don't want to do this, or we don't want to do that. You should talk to everybody, explore everything, get people that can advise you, and, you know, you might find a great partner that could help you get to the next level. So I think that's kind of what you're talking about.
Yeah, you know, and I allude to that just because you know, going to South by Southwest, you know, I don't want to have, you know, anyone misconstrued and going out there and saying, you know, wow, I'm going to have to sign my publishing deal away on the hood of a car. Like, those days are, you know, are long gone. You'll have, you know, representation that looks out for your best interests. So, you know, you should speak to publishers while you're out South by Southwest. There's a ton of them down there from all different sizes, from Universal to you know, a local independent, and I think you should, you know, hold conversations with anyone that shows interest in your music, and then later on decide whether that's a partnership that you want to enter into.